The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous empire in history, rose from the harsh, windswept steppes of Central Asia under the leadership of Genghis Khan, with unmatched military strategy, ruthless discipline, and a vision that spanned continents. The Mongols conquered vast territories, reshaping the political and cultural landscape of Eurasia. Cities fell, kingdoms crumbled, and populations were forced into submission. Their speed, mobility, and ferocity struck terror into anyone who opposed them, making the Mongols the most feared warriors of their time. Genghis Khan's death in 1227 left an empire without its singular, unifying force. His successors faced a monumental challenge, maintaining control over a realm that spanned thousands of miles, encompassed diverse populations, religions, and languages, and demanded constant military oversight. At first, the empire thrived. Under the Great Khans, the Mongols expanded into Persia, China, Korea, and Eastern Europe. Trade along the Silk Road flourished, allowing goods, ideas, and technologies to flow across continents. The empire became a conduit of culture and commerce, connecting regions previously isolated from one another. Yet cracks began to appear. The sheer scale of the empire made governance increasingly difficult. Regional governors and local leaders, once loyal to the Great Khan, started prioritizing personal power. Disputes over succession became increasingly violent, as ambitious relatives and generals sought to assert authority over key territories. Civil wars erupted, draining resources and diverting military strength from external campaigns. Meanwhile, local populations, once too terrified to resist, began rebelling, exploiting gaps in the Mongols' control. Economic pressures also contributed to decline. The empire relied heavily on plunder, tributes, and taxation from conquered regions. As rebellion and mismanagement increased, these flows of wealth diminished. Agricultural lands, essential for feeding both population and army, were neglected or overexploited, leading to famine in several regions. Trade routes, once thriving under Mongol protection, became vulnerable to attacks, piracy, and banditry. The very network that had facilitated their rise now strained under its own weight. The empire's vast cultural diversity, initially a strength, became a source of tension. Religious tolerance allowed stability in conquered regions, but inconsistencies in administration, local corruption, and occasional harsh policies sowed resentment. Nomadic traditions clashed with the complexities of governing settled, urban populations. Over time, Mongol rulers became absorbed into local cultures, losing the cohesion that had once united the empire. By the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire had split into four major khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Golden Horde in Russia. Each khanate operated independently, occasionally cooperating, but often pursuing conflicting agendas. Civil wars, succession disputes, and rebellions weakened each khanate further. The Yuan dynasty in China faced persistent resistance from native populations. Corruption, inefficiency, and the resentment of local elites undermined Mongol rule, leading to widespread rebellion. By 1368, the Ming dynasty overthrew the Yuan, ending Mongol dominance in China. In Persia, the Ilkhanate fragmented as regional rulers gained autonomy. Internal conflict, combined with economic decline and external threats, made centralized control impossible. Similarly, the Golden Horde gradually lost influence over Russian principalities, which consolidated into emerging states. The Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia fractured, leaving smaller, weaker states struggling for survival. Across Eurasia, the Mongols went from rulers of vast territories to regional powers struggling to maintain relevance. Military overextension was another factor in the empire's decline. The Mongols had once relied on speed, mobility, and terror to dominate, but as territories became more fortified, armies more professional, and knowledge of Mongol tactics spread, their advantage diminished. Fortified cities, better organized armies, and local resistance made conquest costly and less sustainable. Combined with internal strife, this resulted in a gradual erosion of military supremacy. The decline also had cultural and psychological dimensions. The Mongols' absorption into the very cultures they had conquered diluted their identity and eroded loyalty to the central authority. The empire's nomadic traditions, once a source of strength, conflicted with the demands of ruling urban populations. Religious, linguistic, and cultural differences became fault lines that local rulers exploited, further destabilizing central control. Environmental factors contributed as well. Famine, disease, and climate fluctuations strained resources and weakened populations. The infamous Black Death, arriving decades later, devastated regions formerly under Mongol control, further undermining economic stability. These natural challenges, combined with internal division, created a perfect storm for decline. Despite fragmentation, the Mongols' legacy persisted. Trade networks they established continued to connect East and West. Cultural exchanges, technology, and knowledge spread along the routes they once controlled. The empire's rise and fall became a historical lesson. Ambition and military genius can conquer, but only wise governance, cultural cohesion, and adaptation can sustain power over time. By the 15th century, the Mongol Empire existed largely in memory. Former territories were ruled by successor states. The once feared armies became regional forces. The unified vision of the great Khans had vanished. What remained were fragmented khanates, cultural influence, and a historical legend of both terrifying conquest and inevitable decline. The story of the Mongols teaches a timeless lesson. Power built on fear and conquest alone cannot endure. Governance, diplomacy, economic stability, and adaptability are essential to maintain a vast empire. Their history reminds us that empires, no matter how mighty, are fragile human constructs, vulnerable to internal strife, mismanagement, and the challenges of diversity. The rise and fall of the Mongols is not just a tale of conquest. It is a reflection of human ambition, strategy, resilience, and ultimately, the limitations inherent in even the most formidable powers. The decline of the Mongol Empire offers one of the most profound lessons in the rise and fall of civilizations. It demonstrates that military genius and unparalleled conquests, no matter how spectacular, cannot guarantee the longevity of a state if governance, diplomacy, and cultural cohesion are neglected. The Mongol success was built on speed, discipline, and fear, but the vastness of their empire introduced vulnerabilities that even their most brilliant leaders could not fully manage. Fragmentation of authority, succession disputes, and internal rebellions weakened the empire from within, while external forces adapted to Mongol tactics, resisting conquest and reclaiming autonomy. Economic pressures, overextension, and the logistical challenges of managing diverse populations exposed the limitations of reliance solely on intimidation and military dominance. Yet, their story is not merely one of failure. The Mongols facilitated unprecedented cultural exchange, connecting East and West through trade, knowledge, and ideas that shaped centuries of development. The ultimate lesson is clear. True power is sustainable only when ambition is balanced with strategic governance, respect for diverse societies, and adaptability to changing circumstances. Leadership without wisdom or ethical foresight risks not only the fall of empires, but the suffering of millions who live under them. The Mongol Empire reminds us that history is not only shaped by conquest, but by the human capacity to build, maintain, and preserve civilization, and that even the mightiest forces can crumble when the structures of order, justice, and foresight are ignored.